Tony Blair is with us, former Prime Minister, of course. Mr Blair, thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. You say, in response to the government, act now. What does that look like?
I think what it looks like, is first of all, to accelerate the booster programme. I mean, we're doing about 165,000 a day. We think you need to take that up to 500,000, and you could do that if you put in place the right mechanisms. We need to accelerate the vaccination of children. We're falling quite far behind now. France, Italy, Germany in the vaccination of 12 to 17-year-olds. And we need to make sure that pregnant women, who are making up a quite large proportion of those people in ICU at the moment, we need to step up the campaign to reassure them that vaccination is sensible and they're much more at risk of COVID than they are of any problems resulting from vaccination. So I think we've suggested in our report 12 separate measures. It's not that the government don't have in place the things that are necessary. It's really a call for an accelerated sense of urgency. Because if you, for example, look at the UK today and compare it with France, Italy, Germany, whereas at one point during this pandemic, you could say we were well ahead on vaccinations and doing far better. Now, when you look at our case levels and hospitalisation levels, they're several times the rate that they are in those countries. So it may be, as the Health Minister says, the pressures are sustainable for the moment, but I think really from an abundance of caution, and because we've always been surprised on the downside with this disease, it would be sensible to take these measures now with, as I say, that sense of accelerated urgency.
So lots to talk about and unpick there. Let's just deal with how many beds are available in the NHS to start with. The government is saying we've got 6,000 extra beds for now. Frontline workers are saying that's absolute nonsense. You're falling on the side of the government for now, are you?
No, I'm really saying that we may have some extra beds available, and there's dispute about exactly how many and so on. But the point is, we're coming under increased pressure, and we're running at north of 40,000 cases a day. I mean, the figure in Italy is 3,000 cases. I was speaking to someone in the Italian government last week. They think that's too many. So we're well in advance of that. You've just got to say what's going to happen as we approach what will always be difficult, because you always do have winter pressures on the health service. If those cases reach levels north not of 40,000 but of 80,000 or 100,000, as the health secretary was saying yesterday. So if you're looking, it's not right at this moment that the situation is unsustainable, but it could develop that way.
Okay, so the government is saying in response to that, because I put it to the minister this morning, he's saying, what else can we do? We've got the jabs, we need the arms. And that's also what we heard from the health secretary yesterday. And so basically shifting the responsibility to the general public. They need to come forward for these vaccinations to try and bring down these COVID cases.
Yeah, but I think this is where I would disagree with them. I think there's a lot more that they can do to make it clear to people why boosters are necessary. If you take, for example, because my institute studies what happens around different parts of the world. If you take what happened in Israel, they got vaccinations probably quicker than any other place in the world. They got people double jabbed. Everything was going pretty well. But what happens is, after about 6 months, so the evidence seems to show, the efficacy of the vaccination starts to wane, and as a result of that waning, then people, even if they're double vaccinated, can be liable to get COVID, and of course if they've got underlying conditions or other problems, then they can be seriously ill or hospitalised, even potentially die from it. So that was the situation. They then moved to booster shots, and they've really taken care of it as a result of that. So what the government needs to do is increase that capacity to give boosters and make it far more easy for people to do it. So, at the moment, it's a bit of a struggle when you're trying to book your booster shot. It should be easy. You could allow pharmacies, for example, to be doing it alongside the flu shot. So that's one very simple thing to do. The other thing is to have a much bigger push with pregnant women to explain to them. I think that the figures are still fewer than half of pregnant women are actually being vaccinated. Not in the figures, not just the percentages, but the actual figures and the data on vaccination and the impact on the health of the country. And the truth of the matter is the evidence that vaccination works is literally, okay, it's overwhelming. I mean, there's no doubt about it at all. And by the way, Pfizer and AstraZeneca are both excellent vaccines, as is Moderna and other vaccines. So you've got a situation where if you really take this out to people and say to them, look, just look at the data, it's clear. Vaccination works. The absence of vaccination, your failure to get vaccinated doesn't just put you at risk. I think this is what is important. In a way, if this were just a personal decision for people, and you get vaccinated, you don't get vaccinated, it's you who suffers if you don't. But it's not you who suffers if you don't, simply. It's also other people. And there are people who are unvaccinated. They come into contact with people, even those who are vaccinated now, they can still transmit the disease. And if those people have got a serious underlying condition, they can actually die as a result of that. So I think, I understand people's objections, but at some point you've got to say to people, look, the evidence, not just from Britain, but around the world, is crystal clear. There's no serious person disputing it. And to get vaccinated is actually part of it's almost part of your civic duty.
Something that I know you will have a view on is COVAX, former Prime Minister. As you'll know, the British government said that they would provide 80 million vaccinations to COVAX, which, for the benefit of our viewers, helps people in countries around the world who wouldn't have access to these vaccinations otherwise. Up until now, we've only supplied 7% of that. And even worse, we took 500,000 of those jabs back to be used in the United Kingdom. How can that be morally correct?
Well, I think we need to do far, far more on this, of course. I mean, I've always said to people, you can't expect governments not to look after their own population first. And so I think it's natural that the UK, for example, wants to give its booster shots in order to protect its population. But the truth is we're producing large quantities of vaccine. And I hope, by the way, in November and December, and certainly in the early part of next year, you should get a lot of vaccine flowing. I mean, the biggest problem, to be fair, Kate, that you've had on with COVAX is that the vast bulk of the COVAX purchase was to come from the Serum Institute in India, that is producing probably 150 to 200 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine a month. Because the Indian government got a huge surge of cases themselves with the Delta variant, then they have taken most of that vaccine in order to vaccinate their own population. But that situation is easing now, and we should be able to get much more AstraZeneca vaccine to the developing world in the next few weeks.
Yeah, but that doesn't really answer my question for former Prime Minister, which is we gave them these doses, far fewer than we should have done anyway. But the point is we did donate these doses and then we took 500,000 back when I think something like 3.6% of the African population has been vaccinated. And these doses were for countries like that, and we took it back.
Yeah, I understand that. But my point is that we are actually giving substantial numbers of doses. Of course we should do more. Everyone should do more. And what I'm trying to say to you is I think you'll find that over the next few weeks, because my institute works in many of these African countries, the vaccination will start to flow. I actually think the biggest problem in these countries, Kate, in the next few months is going to be how they absorb those vaccines and actually get them distributed to their population. So you're not wrong on what you're saying. I mean, I agree with you. But I think that situation should ease, not just in respect of the UK, but in respect of the US and Europe over the next few weeks and certainly over the next few months. But then we're going to have to turn our attention to how we make sure those vaccines get into people's arms, because that's a big challenge in many of these countries.
OK, just before I let you go, when are you going to return to frontline politics to sort your party out? Don't swerve it, just tell me.
No, I don't think that's on the agenda, which will probably be to the relief of many of your viewers.
Agenda ever or any time soon?
No. Okay, honestly, I'm not thinking about that at all. I mean, look, I'm very happy with what I'm doing, but it's kind of you to ask.
You're very welcome, former Prime Minister. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. Thank you.